Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thought Leader Podcast. Today, we have an amazing thought leader with us. Her name is Amy Armstrong, and I am a big fan of her work. And so, hi, Amy.
Hello, Alina.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a real treat.
Oh my goodness. I just love the work that you do as a coach and a social worker. Tell us about you. Why don't you tell our audience about your career? Because you've been doing this for a long time, 2 decades, everybody. And so tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. It's really changed a lot over the years also. So, yes, I'm a social worker, and that actually came toward the second half of my career. I started off teaching parents parenting skills, and I loved connecting with them really in the trenches. And we all know that parenting is difficult. I just refused to believe that parents had to be in a bad mood all the time. So I really love tapping into ways that parents could take care of themselves and meet their children's needs in a way that still felt life affirming, still gave the parents a high priority in the household too. And it's a really interesting discussion how parenting has changed over the years. We know that now we're almost too far in the child-centered range, that parents are burning out. The parent anxiety is high, and it actually can be really contagious to the children. So I started off teaching parenting and realized that my heart wanted so much to connect with them in their specific situations. And I became a coach. And I loved parent coaching. And my business grew the more willing I was to work with difficult situations. And I ended up working with a lot of co-parents that had disputes in court. So they were getting divorced, they were in custody battles, they were fighting over anything and everything. And that became my niche, to work with high conflict families. And at that point, I went back to school. I was 50 years old when I graduated with my master's in social work, got my license that year, and I have been working as a social worker ever since. And having the link to the mental health field and the credibility of having that license and the awareness of all the different aspects of mental health definitely helped me develop as a coach. So much to the point that I started my own coach development program to help other coaches develop skill and gain visibility through credentialing. And so, yeah, now I'm fully immersed in policy. We're really making significant changes in the domestic court system, not only in the court where I serve part-time, but the judge where I work, and I give trainings all over the country to other judges and other folks working in family law. And we use a coach approach to creating massive change in families and in the system.
Oh, wow. That's amazing, Amy. And tell us about the Center for Family Resolution.
Mm-hmm. So that's my baby. That's the company that I founded when I first started working as a coach, and then added in mediation. And then in many jurisdictions around the world, there's a service called parenting coordination, where we walk with the family even after their court case has ended to help them reduce conflict and stay out of court. So the Center for Family Resolution is the hub now of my work, where couples come who want to stay together, right? They want to address conflict in a way that allows them to, remain as an intact family. And it's also a place where people can separate or divorce with dignity, with particular sensitivity to trauma and high need situations, where we can be very specific in how they address their issues going through the separation and divorce process. And I have lots of other coaches that work with me there. So I have quite a big team of folks that can support families there.
That's amazing. And I love that you're also part of this solution, not only by bringing your 20-year experience, but also running this coach development program. Because I love that you're doing this as a team and getting support and serving more people. Good job. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah. And then just in the last, really this year, I've been branching out to serve other venues that are experiencing conflict. I'm doing some work in the New York City schools through their Board of Education. And I love educational settings and also companies where conflict is disrupting productivity and as well as well-being.
Yeah. Two big things that we need to be looking at. Mm-hmm. So, you've been doing this for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And what I love about your approach is that you help people see themselves differently. So how exactly do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I start by seeing themselves. I see them differently than they see themselves. And I hold a vision for them of hope even before they can. So I do a lot of visioning with them and help them imagine life when it's better. I ask them to define better for me, right? What's going to be happening when your child's in a better place or when you're happier? And then I hold that vision for them so that they can not be only limited to their current experiences. So I can help them imagine experiments that they can do in handling their relationships and their conflicts differently, that would come out of a vision that I can hold for them even before they can hold it for themselves. So many people cannot see themselves making significant changes because they're completely stuck with the fear of repeating what's happened in the past. And they're so afraid to try something new because uncertainty is so scary. So I often am holding a vision for them even before they can start to create a new vision for themselves. And I'll tell them, I'm going to hold hope for you. I'm going to imagine that you're able to relax and calmly work with your co-parent or your child or your boss, even before you are. And then that vibe, that sense of calmness that I can hold for them starts to trickle into their own vision of themselves. But people often really can't see themselves differently until they experience a little bit of success.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love that you ask them to define better.
Oh, yeah.
And define, because I love that specificity of that vision. And you really, truly are an expert and a thought leader in this subject. And with that, let me ask you real quickly, how do you define thought leader?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that question. We actually use the word innovation a lot at the Center for Family Resolution and at the court where I serve part-time. And we're always trying something new. So I would have to say that being a thought leader is someone who has the courage to innovate. And certainly leadership involves getting buy-in from everyone around us, all our stakeholders, and being able to integrate the feedback so that we're making changes that are sustainable and that actually can integrate with the skills and the experience of the people around us. So, yeah, I would say a thought leader is someone that's both innovative and very practical.
Oh, so it truly defines who you are. I love that. And so, we're talking about the cure, the conflict cure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do you think is maybe the number one misconception out there about conflict?
I think people, I like it when people feel really passionately about their positions and what they think they want. It's just so often people get attached to only one way of achieving the experience that they're really looking for. And so probably the biggest mistake people make is getting attached to only one way of solving a problem. And they aren't tapping into creativity.
Yeah, I think I can relate to being that person.
Me too. I've been there. Definitely been there.
As,
Mm-hmm.
as you're saying that, I'm shaking my head and I'm nodding at the same time. I love that. And yeah, it's such a simple and yet easy trap to fall into.
It is a trap.
And yeah, yeah. And no wonder you teach this, because you also wrote a book about conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't read it. It's on my list. But tell us a little bit about the book
Sure.
and what motivated you to write it, and what is the big takeaway. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to read it. It just means we're going to.
Right. So I wrote the book because so many really good-hearted people in my client base have struggled with conflict their whole lives. And so I realized that resolving conflict wasn't really a natural skill, especially in a culture that is very individualized. And conflict really represents this need to be, to have approval and to be acknowledged for how you see something. And that's not exactly what resolving conflict is, right? When I think of resolving conflict, I think of getting to a point where a person can feel calm and confident and creative, be willing to try different things to get along in their family or in their workplace or in society. And it just wasn't unfolding as a natural skill for a lot of people that I was working with. So I wanted to really help people see conflict differently and see that our attachment to other people's behavior is never going to lead to peace. Even if it works in one instant, 5 minutes later, there's something else that's going to be troubling. So true curing of conflict is doing that work that it takes to center in our own needs and preferences and values and hold them in a way that is not exclusive, so that we can still be in relationship with other people that hold different views without undermining our sense of security. And what happens is we get so dependent on other people agreeing with us for our security, and that's never going to work. So I like to talk about really becoming our own peacekeeper, where we're in charge of the peace that we experience, rather than turning that power over to the people around us. Even loved ones, we don't want to give them the power to determine the level of conflict or the level of chaos, or on the other side, the level of calm or connection that we feel. So it's really a lot of very concrete skills that people can learn, but they're just not going to pick up on the streets.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that is so juicy. I mean, I love it. I love it, Amy. Be your own peacekeeper.
Mhm.
So empowering.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It really resonates with me. And I really love, I mean, I can't well, now I'm gonna bump it up my list.
Good.
When did you publish it?
Oh, it's actually not going to come out till probably December. I'm still holding out for November, but it might be December.
Okay, so I love that. Love it. And it will be available everywhere.
Everywhere. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so definitely looking forward to reading the book, and everyone get your copy.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. So, one thing that we have in common is that I'm known worldwide as the positive mom. And
Mhm.
you say that everything is about being positive. So, what is your philosophy about what we do with all the negative things in our life? Because they are real, right?
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception that being positive is the same as being happy and cheerful and smiley. And the way I look at positive is more about being hopeful, being open, being forward thinking and forward leaning. And it's not about never feeling a negative thought. It's actually about a paradox of allowing negative thought rather than resisting it and bringing self-compassion to anything that feels negative to us so that it can keep flowing through us. It can be part of our experience without defining us. So when I say we have to be positive, it just means there's more. There's more coming that we can learn from, that we can lean into, more support, more glimmers of joy, more ways that we can have a full life, right? We never have to feel like it's as good as it's going to get. There's always more coming. And the negative is really part of the whole, and learning how to feel the negativity without being repulsed by it or without withdrawing or resisting it actually keeps us in this free flow, so that overall our experience is, it feels very positive and forward moving.
I absolutely agree 100% with that. That's the type of positivity that I also endorse, not toxic positivity. That
No, it
it's what
doesn't have to be sugar. It doesn't have to be sugary sweet. We want it to be real, and we want
yeah,
it to be deep and part of a authentic experience where we're actually embodying positivity and healing and hope, not just staying on the surface and pretending that we're positive.
absolutely 100%. And you mentioned that authenticity, learning to be authentic, and that truly is key. So, how do you be authentic when you are holding back from saying how you really feel?
Mhm. That is such a good question. I'm really an expert on authenticity because I did it wrong for 45 years. I had such trouble with this because I was a bit of a pleaser, and I was always seeking approval from my sister and my mom and my first husband. And I really had a hard time giving myself permission to have an opinion where I wasn't really sure how it would be received. Well, what I've learned about being authentic is it really has nothing to do with just taking every single thought or feeling we have out on another person. It means that we know ourselves. And then from that knowing, we can carefully and thoughtfully choose how to interact with someone in a way that serves the goal of the relationship. So being authentic really doesn't have anything to do with oversharing. It has to do with being confident and being willing to carefully choose what parts of ourself we want to share in the current interactions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure you're not alone. We are not alone in that experience of doing it wrong for many years.
Many years.
Yeah. I think it's resonating with a lot of people because that's really how we were conditioned to be, pleasing everyone, being quiet. Yeah.
Nice.
It's
It also comes out a lot. I can tell you a short story about a woman I've been working with, and she actually is in the process of splitting up with her husband. She has two teenagers, and if she's worried that if she's authentic and shares any of her sadness with her co-parent, that he's going to take it the wrong way, that he's going to think she wants to get back together, or, she's just afraid of what comes next if she shares any of her real feelings with him. And so what we talked about individually in preparation for a joint session with her co-parent was how important it was for her to get clear with what made her sad and what it was about him that she wanted to honor through a little bit of sharing, and frame it exactly in an authentic way, which is as we go forward with a lot of distance, we're not going to be seeing each other a lot. I want you to know that just because we're not talking a lot or seeing each other a lot, that doesn't mean that I have ongoing negative feelings about you. It means that I actually feel good about the decision to be apart. And because I have made an authentic decision, it actually allows that full range of emotions to come back.
Yeah. Oh, that
it took her a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't often have co-parents wanting to share a lot. They don't want to open their hearts to each other, but being authentic definitely means being in touch with our true feelings for ourselves first before we decide what it is we want to share with the other person.
Yeah, I love that so much. And how do you protect yourself from hostility without being hostile?
I would say at least once a day, I'm working with folks that are experiencing a lot of hostility, even violence. And there's actually a few ways I can answer that question. So one is we want to make sure we're in an environment where any ongoing hostility is not going to amp up, right? So we need maybe to use Zoom instead of meeting in person, or we need really tight boundaries around the types of interactions that we're going to have together. But we can also, I work very closely with people in helping them create the plan of what they're going to do before they engage and after they engage in order to check in with their nervous system and make sure that they're meeting their own needs and not allowing blame to drive the conversation. We have all experienced blaming other people. It's a shortcut to trying to feel better. It doesn't work in the long run. But what I do is help people create their blame plan for when they start to get those feelings of feeling critical or wanting to blame the other person for how they feel, that they have some breathing, particularly that exhale, ready to keep releasing. And then hopefully having a physical activity available to them afterwards to literally shake off a lot of the disruption to their nervous system from being in a situation where there's a lot of tension. I mean, I work with a lot of people that have to interact, not by choice, but because they share a child. And so, as nice as it would be to get to just completely control our environment and not have to deal with someone where there's a lot of hostility, a lot of times that's just not an option. Could be in the workplace. You have coworkers, you have someone reporting to you or that you report to, where the hostility comes in. And the only way out is through that exhale.
Wow, that's amazing. So you have an actual blame plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That I don't create it. I support them to create it because it really is different for everyone of how they're going to take care of themselves when they start to get into that really primal thinking that just wants to find fault.
Yeah. And it's something that you mentioned was boundaries.
My favorite topic.
Yeah, I would really love to explore a little bit more there. Like why are boundaries so key in especially in conflict resolution?
Power. They're really key to safeguarding our power. And it's probably not what you think. So a lot of people think of power as being tough, loud voice, stern face, demanding language. That's not power at all. That's a mask. True power is owning what we do want rather than what we don't want, right? So if someone is making a demand of me, you have to pay me $1,000, to make up for this problem, or, you have to be here at 5:00. Our job is to get so good at checking in with ourselves that we can make a boundary instead of anti the person making the demand. We can make it pro me. So someone's demanding to speak to us. I'd be willing to speak with you at the police station with a police officer present, right? That's a boundary stated in terms of what I am willing and able to do, rather than telling you what you have to do. You have to stay away from me. No, I'd be willing to talk to you with a police officer present, or something much more sort of an everyday, less intense situation. Maybe your child is saying, you have to pick me up at 5:30. Well, you don't get off work till 5:30. You might say, I'd be happy to pick you up at 5:45, right? That's actually setting a boundary that's pro me, what works for me, rather than making it about getting defensive or telling that other person what they have to do. Well, you're just going to have to wait till I get there. That doesn't help anything, right? That's just going to get a defensive response in return. But sure, I'd be happy to pick you up. I can get there by 6:40 or by 5:45. Right? So in any situation, no matter how intense it is, we want our boundaries to represent our calm, our confidence, what works for us, but never trespassing on what that other person should think, feel, or do. It's what we're willing and able to do.
Yeah, very clarifying. I love that because a lot of people kind of feel intimidated to set a boundary. And it's what you were saying earlier about the hostility, because a lot of people also are hostile in receiving a boundary. So what would you say about that when you're trying to set a boundary and someone else is hostile or defensive?
We run into this all the time. So all the social emotional learning in the world, about how people should treat each other and how kind we should be, right, kind of goes out the window when the other person isn't following the rules of engagement. So our job is to, I have a very short model that I call see, soothe, say.
Mm.
So number one, with an inhale, we're going to take a look around, check out what is the story of what's happening right now. Because in that moment, are you seeing yourself as a victim? Are you seeing yourself as the righteous person that wants to enforce the rules? Are you seeing yourself as maybe the hero that wants to fix everything? Right? We really want to get a good feel of how we're seeing ourselves and notice if we're feeling really powerless, or notice if we are feeling like the bully that's going to force something to happen. So this C is really just take a look around at the story you're telling yourself. The next part, right after the C, is soothe. What does it take with the exhale to soothe my nervous system? What can I do right now in the heat of the moment to let out the air, to wiggle my toes, to stand up a little straighter, maybe take a sip of water, whatever it is, it's going to help us be in touch and give our nervous system that message that we're going to make really careful choices. And we're doing that see and soothe before we say anything. The say comes next. And at that point, we might know that the situation is traumatizing for us. That simply means it's bigger than we are. We don't have the ability to take care of ourselves in that moment. So we're going to get help. We're going to exit. I encourage couples all the time, take a break, but say, I need to go for a quick walk. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to go for a drive. I'll be back in an hour. Can we talk about this after dinner? I don't want to say anything I don't mean, right? Maybe we need a little escape plan, or maybe we can say a boundary and declare something that we're willing and able to do. But just that check-in process allows us to really get a good read on how we're doing, see what we can do to soothe ourselves before we make that conscious choice about how we want to proceed with someone who's being hostile to us. If we can, it's beautiful to hold the space for someone that's angry. It doesn't mean we're disrespecting ourselves unless we really believe that we deserve to be treated that way, right? Just because someone else is angry with us doesn't mean we have to believe it, right? If we can do that, that's fine. And if we need more support, then we're going to get the support we need rather than hurting ourselves and really harming the whole situation by staying in a situation where we're allowing ourselves to be harmed. I literally had a family I was working with just a few hours ago to this very day where someone said he was yelling at me for 6 hours. And I just thought, wow, how can we establish a plan for harm reduction rather than, giving yourself some message that you're supposed to stick around for that. So we simply can't be allowing ourselves to stick around when we're being harmed. And that's actually the function. Another function of the nervous system is shutdown. Sometimes we might have to stay physically present, but we can allow ourselves to go into shutdown mode where we're really allowing distance between the message that's being given to us and what we're taking in.
You've been listening to the Thought Leader Podcast. At Thought Leader, we help experts, authors, executives, and entrepreneurs land the most credible and authority-building stages in the world to spread their message and their impact. If that's you, visit thought-leader.com and click on Schedule a Session to get started. Now back to this episode of the Thought Leader Podcast.
Oh, that's so powerful because I love how you just brought it full circle. So, I set a boundary by saying what I'm willing and able to do. And if there is still resistance and there is mistreatment, then you have given us this escape tools that even if we're present, we're still escaping through that shutdown technique.
Yeah.
Love it.
Can I teach one really quick tool?
Please.
I love it for many reasons. One is it's a play on my last name, Armstrong. So I call it arming yourself. And I love it because, right, we have a lot of issues with people arming themselves with weapons. Well, we want to arm ourselves with our arms, right? So even doing this, a little hug, a pat on the back, you can even squeeze your body with your arms to remind yourself that you're with yourself. It stands for accept this rescuing, or accept this reset moment for me, right? So it gives you that chance to really squeeze and restore yourself just by using your own body, even if it's crossing your arms as a form of protection. I actually like to cross my arms and then put one hand on my heart. And so it reminds me that I'm protected, but still wanting to be in my heart. And so just using our own body, our arms to arm ourselves can bring us back into our body, into our breath, into that very concrete sensation that I am powerful and responsible for myself. I'm not going to try to control you. I'm going to arm myself, take care of me.
Yes, I love it so much. And that's, so in alignment with what I teach as well, because I think that when we're in our body is when we're really truly empowered. I love that so much. And so one thing that just, came up for me is that we haven't talked about your story. Oh, that it really gives people a lot of context when they know where your passion, because as I'm listening to you, you're such an expert, you know so much about this, you've been doing it for so long. Where did this passion came from? Because I know that it was from your personal story, and so I want everyone to know about that.
I gave my power away starting at about age 2, first to my big sister and then to my first husband. And I really don't hold them responsible. It makes sense, right? As we're developing, right? We don't know about power when we're a child or even early 20s necessarily. But what I learned was that by giving my power away, I gave away all the respect that people would have had for me, right? And so it actually led to people feeling insecure around me. I gave a lot of mixed messages. And I was in a very dysfunctional marriage for literally 25 years. We never aligned as equals. And so I allowed myself to be dominated, and I allowed myself to just play that role of trying to make everything nice for everyone else. And when we split up, I had one miracle after another of people coming into my life, giving me little tidbits of information and helping me see that I was living a very inauthentic life. And the biggest miracle for me, Alina, is that the more authentic I became, the power came up all by itself. I didn't have to go looking for it. It was all the pretense that had been part of me for so long. Once that parted, I got this fire in me where the boldness and the creativity and the risk, I was willing to take risks that I was never willing to take before. That happened just by being more authentic. I didn't have to learn, I didn't have to go get power somewhere. And I was very turned off by the sort of, I call it sort of fake power by a lot of women that were mouthy, that were, may I say, well, I'll just call it prickly, that had this sort of distasteful kind of boundary setting. And what happened for me is that I found that I could be so kind and caring, which I always felt was my true nature, and really powerful by being more clear, more direct, more able to ask for what I wanted without letting it be demanding or trying to tell other people what to do. So my experience changed in a matter of, a few years. And I almost instantly was ready to start my business, get more training, go back to school, start promoting myself, making money. And it just was so fun to watch myself come into power simply by being authentic.
Oh my goodness, I can resonate so much with your story. I feel it, and allowing myself to become powerful just by being authentic has been also a journey that I've been on, and I resonate with you. I'm really proud of you. I'm really excited that you're helping so many people because you were able to become powerful by your authenticity. And now so many people have these tools and these strategies to do the same. So it's really been amazing to just see what you've been able to do.
I find that a lot of people that try to set boundaries by saying no and by demanding, that's not really authentic for them. It not only doesn't work, not only are they giving power away, but it really isn't. I believe for most people at their core, they really feel better when they can relax, enjoy life, and set boundaries by simply owning what they're willing and able to do without those prickly edges.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
You seem to radiate this type of boundary setting yourself.
Yeah, and I learned also this way, right? And from not having any boundaries whatsoever to learning to navigate how do I become authentic and stay safe. So really, really love what you're sharing. And I have a last question for you. And I'm so sad that we're running out of time because I could talk to you for 4 hours straight. And maybe just take a little break and talk for more 4 hours. But, something that really showed up in my relationships and that I've seen a lot of women struggle with is this concept that if I'm doing all the work in the relationship, is that truly fair? And why do I always have to be the one to give in?
Mm-hmm. I hear that a lot. And I often turn it around, right? What would it be like for you if you didn't give everything you had to make things better? Or, really ask questions. Well, what would you do, right, if you weren't giving more, right? We'd be really frustrated, right? So holding back never feels good. And I find that the type of work that you and I do is actually pretty contagious. When people see that we're happy doing the work, it's actually quite inspiring for other people to want to do their work as well. But I do think it's really important that we not really judge the outcomes because we don't really know how hard someone else is working. We really don't know the pain they're in. We really don't know the limiting beliefs that they have about themselves that hold them back. So I really just tap into the freedom that I'm actually free to do this work. And I'm so thankful that I wouldn't even dream of holding back. But like any conversation, especially as a coach, I like to ask questions in return, to ask them really what kind of experience they want to have and what's going to help them sleep better at night. And at the end of the day, it's usually about knowing that they showed up as their best self.
It's that authenticity that you've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it so much. And I'm so grateful for all the wisdom that you've imparted today. I know there's more. And I know that we definitely need to pick up that book so that we can learn all of the strategies, or let's just say some of the strategies, because Amy has been doing this for over 20 years and she has helped thousands of people. And she is truly an expert on the subject. And she just continues to learn, because I know that you're a lifelong learner. You're always investing in yourself. So it just gets better and better. Thank you, Amy, for who you are, for the work that you do, for taking this time to freely give us this amazing wisdom that you imparted. And I look forward to having you with us again, hopefully. And is there anything that you want to leave everyone with before we move on today?
Sure. May I thank you so much for your questions, for your grace, for just holding such a beautiful space for me today. And yes, what I would like to help everyone remember is there is always hope. There's always a better day. There's always things that you can try, and just to never give up seeing yourself in a better light, and just allowing yourself to shine.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Thought Leader Podcast.
That's it for today's episode of the Thought Leader Podcast. Visit our Thought Leader Talks YouTube channel to browse all episodes and show notes, and to continue the conversation. We love to hear your feedback, ideas, and success stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more expert information, insights, and inspiration. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Thought Leader Podcast with another relevant conversation you don't want to miss.